For American Family News, I'm Chris Woodward. The ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas appears to be holding, but what about Phase 2? After all, this is only the beginning of the deal that President Donald Trump got both sides to agree to. Trump says it would be foolish for Hamas to break the deal.
We have a lot of leverage over them, and the countries that would back them or had backed them in the past are not going to be doing it any further, and I think they want peace also.
Meanwhile, what about the tunnels that Hamas has been using under Gaza? Trey Ying's talked about that on Fox and Friends.
We've reported from some of these tunnels beneath the Gaza Strip, and many of them go 60 or 70 feet underground. And while the Israelis used airstrikes to dismantle much of this tunnel network, especially in the northern part of Gaza, we have to look at the reality of the situation, and that is that Israeli forces did not enter some of the central areas of the Gaza Strip, including the Deir al-Balah area of central Gaza. And we know that there are tunnels there that have not yet been touched. And so Israel still has a long road ahead. The easy way out here is Hamas laying down their weapons, disarming and leaving Gaza as part of this Trump administration peace plan. But if they refuse to do so and this war sparks up again, the Israelis will likely re-enter some of these areas of Gaza where there still is a tunnel network. And so it's a long road ahead. But for right now, the ceasefire is holding and the war is over.
For more on President Trump and the deal between Israel and Hamas, visit our website, afn.net. A new survey finds alarming results on the beliefs and values of church-going Americans. The research was done by Dr. George Barna. He told Washington Watch that his team looked at quite a few things.
We looked at people's faith, we looked at their worldview, we looked at voting patterns, political engagement, we looked at their perspectives on abortion and family in Israel, all kinds of things. And what concerns me is that we're losing ground in the abortion battle, where we've got more and more Christians who either don't care or they're certainly not well informed about what the Bible teaches about it, because we find that fewer of them are calling themselves pro-life. Fewer of them say that the Bible is clear and decisive when it talks about issues related to abortion, stands on abortion. We're losing ground in terms of the immorality of engaging in abortion. And with family, there were some things that concern me, such as the fact that a majority of church-going Christians don't even know how to define family. And so the culture really seems to be taking a good hit on people's minds and hearts, those who are consistently attending church. They're confused by these things. And there wasn't as much support for Israel as you might have expected from regular churchgoers. And in terms of worldview, we're also seeing people becoming more confused, less informed, and therefore not really thinking like Jesus.
New York Attorney General Letitia James rallied last night for Zohran Mamdani. This was the first public appearance for James since she was indicted for alleged bank fraud and making false statements. James said that she and Mamdani are close and that he should be elected mayor of New York City.
So good to be here with all of you, standing with my very good friend, my little brother, and one of the boldest voices in the history of New York politics.
The mayoral election in New York City is next month. Los Angeles County officials will vote today on whether to declare a state of emergency that would give them power to provide assistance for residents they say have suffered financially from ongoing federal immigration raids. Opponents argue that the raids do not meet the criteria of an emergency and that it could be unfair to landlords. In final news, slain TPUSA founder Charlie Kirk will be honored today with the Medal of Freedom. Today would have been Kirk's 32nd birthday. Find more news on afn.net. Thanks for listening.
Some Christians wonder if boycotting businesses is really biblical, and that's a fair question. Ed Vitagliano and M.D. Perkins address that subject in depth in the AFA Cultural Institute video, Stewardship in Action, The Power of the Boycott. They share the purpose of boycotts and show how they can impact the culture. We're giving that DVD to you free as our thanks for supporting AFA this month. Go to afa.net today for more details. afa.net.
Welcome to Today's Issues. Join us for the next hour as we offer a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Ed Vitagliano.
And welcome to Today's Issues. It is Tuesday, October 14th. I am joined in studio by Fred Jackson. Good morning, Fred.
G'day, sir.
G'day. Chris Woodward joins us. Good morning.
I would say hello in like a Dick Van Dyke British accent, but I don't want to offend A, the British, or B, our listeners. So hello. Good morning.
That was kind of a long explanation of why you weren't doing something.
We are lucky the Brits didn't invade us again after Dick Van Dyke tried to be a British person in Mary Poppins.
You know, you didn't like his performance in Mary Poppins?
I did not.
The original?
I did not.
I always liked that movie.
The movie is better than the book. I can say that too. Rarely do you find the movie better than the book, but in my opinion that nobody asked for this morning, the movie is better than the book.
Tim Wildmon is out of town this week. That's why I'm in the captain's chair. He's actually taking a tour group to Boston.
Boston?
And I'm wondering with the weather. What's the weather updates there? Were they getting hit by a big storm?
Oh, yeah. The last couple of days, it has not been nice in Boston.
Yeah.
But that storm, I think, system has moved off now, so it should be pretty nice.
All right.
Yeah.
52 currently.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good weather. I just saw someone in the hallway, by the way, and Jeff Wagner, who works here with us. And as I was coming down the stairs from my office to come here to the studio, I heard Jeff in the where we have a couple ladies who answer phones and greet people when they come in to the kind of entrance to the building. But Jeff was talking about cannolis and fresh Italian bread, and I got my hopes up. I thought someone had opened that a bakery or something here in the Tupelo area. So, folks, if you're listening, that's where our flagship station, our headquarters, is located, even though we're in 36 states with our radio network. And so I stopped coming here to the studio, and I said, please tell me. And he said, no, I was in Pittsburgh.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, the bigger cities, you're going to get, not just for Italian food, probably all kinds of ethnic foods. You get the real deal, as it were.
You can start you a little small business, Eddie's or something.
Eddie's. Listen, I have actually thought about doing that, but I'm not a businessman, so it would very soon go out of business.
A lot of business owners are not businessmen either, but yes.
Anyway, I was disappointed. You've lived in big cities.
Yeah,
Fred.
Toronto I loved. There's a couple of main streets in Toronto, Yonge and Bloor, and along Bloor, anybody who's been to Toronto probably have been on Bloor. But you walk along and you have the Italian bakeries.
Oh, my goodness.
And I used to walk just for that. That smell.
Just the smell.
The fresh bread, and there's Greek sections, Asian sections down further south in the city. I just love the cultural mix. It's fantastic. Same thing with Vancouver.
Yeah.
The cultural mix is just absolutely wonderful.
And you don't realize that people sometimes ask me, because I married a Mississippi girl, and my kids, born and raised, and I've lived in Mississippi since 1985, long period of time. And people will ask, what do you miss about Boston and New England? And I always say, it is these family-owned restaurants, and then real bakeries and real delis. And I miss all that. And there are people listening who are in big cities, and they know what we're talking about. So anyway,
got you on food.
Now I'm just really discouraged and disappointed. So, all right, Chris, I'll tell you what, I know there's going to be some good news here.
Yes. As a matter of fact, I'll begin with positive news from Israel, where a lot of news outlets pretty much since last night, or certainly early this morning when I came in to do the Rusty Pew shift, a lot of news outlets have done stories on the reunions between people that were being held hostage by Hamas, Israelis I'm talking about, now back with their loved ones in the nation of Israel. Trey Yingst, for the first 30 minutes or so of Fox News Channel's Fox and Friends program this morning, they spent about 30 minutes talking with Trey Yingst about all kinds of things involving Israel and this peace deal, phase 2. I'll get to some of that in a second. But let's begin with some positive news. Here is Trey Yingst talking about hostages being released and the reunions. Clip 1.
A joyous day as 20 living hostages were released from Hamas captivity. Also, the bodies of 4 others returned to Israel for a proper burial. We have gotten the names from the Israeli military of 2 of those hostages who were returned in coffins. Bipin Joshi from Nepal, he was working near the border during the October 7th massacre, and Guy Iluz, who was a sound technician attending the Nova Music Festival. Overnight, President Trump wrapped up his trip to the Middle East with a summit in Egypt where he signed the Gaza ceasefire deal that allowed the release of these hostages. It was a day of celebration on Monday with so many reunions, former hostages meeting their families again after more than 2 years. We do expect to get more updates on their health conditions today from local hospitals.
Well, I do want to point out, and this is good news, getting these hostages back. I do want to point out, yesterday I think we mentioned that there were no women hostages released. Those were the news reports that everyone was given.
Mm-hmm.
So so there was one woman released, I think,
Yes.
with the hostages. But this is good news. This is, I know we're going to hear some more sound with regards to President Trump's role in it. But I was just looking at a story here on American Family News. That you go to afn.net, folks, for great news from a Christian perspective. But the Egyptian president was saying that Trump's Middle East proposal is the, quote, last chance for peace in the region. It is a first step that has been taken in the 20-step peace plan. There's a lot of pessimism out there. I know we're going to talk about some of the things that Hamas is continuing to do, but this is a good first step. We mentioned this yesterday, and President Trump deserves a lot of credit for it.
Oh, absolutely. And to underline that, able to watch, they had a lot of videos as the families were being reunited with their sons and husbands in some cases, all that sort of thing. Pardon me. There was one particular reunion, and this involved a guy who was a hostage. And you may remember back a few months ago, Hamas took a picture of him. He was digging his own grave.
Yeah.
Remember that picture? Well, he was one of the hostages released. And the video showed him reuniting with his mom. And you can't help, Martha McCallum, one of the Fox hosts yesterday, had tears in her eyes. You can't help this.
Right.
When you see and you realize what these families have been through for 2 years, not knowing, number one, whether their kids have survived,
Yeah.
or husbands, but also the day by day getting your hopes up, because some of the hostages were released over the last 2 years.
Yes.
And you can imagine, maybe it's my son today,
Yeah.
and it's not. And then, this particular mom saw the picture of her son digging his own grave, supposedly, there by Hamas. But I want to draw attention to this particular mom when she was weeping, and heartfelt, depth-felt, gut-felt,
Yeah.
weeping. But also I looked at her face and the deep rings under her eyes.
Yeah.
This is a mom who probably hasn't slept very much for 2 years.
Right.
So it was absolutely an incredible moment. So there are not too many people. Maybe we'll talk about one reporter in particular, but there's not too many people that are disagreeing. This is an incredible moment yesterday. Now, moving on, just hours afterwards, when President Trump flew to Egypt for this summit, to talk about the next parts
Right.
of this peace deal. I don't think anybody is under any illusions that everything's going to be okay. It's not. This story that you just referenced on afn.net, it speaks of the Turkish President Erdogan. And he said he wasn't going to be part of that Egyptian summit yesterday if Prime Minister Netanyahu was there. In fact, while these discussions were going on, Erdogan's plane was circling over this Red Sea resort because he really said, I'm not going to land this airplane until I'm sure that Netanyahu isn't there.
That much hatred.
That
towards
much hatred.
Israel.
Because Turkey was one of those countries, along with Qatar, that was playing host to Hamas terrorist leaders.
Yes.
All right? So that hatred is still there. And if anybody thinks what happened yesterday, that hatred's going away, it's not. So this is, it gets real complicated from this point on in this. You know, is Hamas going to give up its arms? As of this morning, we had reports of gunfire between Israeli soldiers and Hamas. We have reports this morning of Hamas.
Israeli soldiers
Israel,
and Hamas? Okay.
Yes. We have reports this morning of Hamas executing in the streets of Gaza opposition tribes that are still there in Gaza. So less than 24 hours, the unrest is back. And so, you know, we pray that the next steps will happen.
Right.
Because nobody wants the horrors of what's been going on in the Middle East for so long. But at the same time, we have to be realistic. These tensions, it's been going on for thousands of years.
Right.
You know, President Trump at one point yesterday was talking about, you know, almost like this ends the bitter disputes over the last thousands of years. No, it doesn't. It's not going to go away. And, you know, Israel is very clear. Prime Minister Netanyahu is very clear. At the end of the day, he says, Israel will make sure its border is secure. Despite all of the diplomacy and the various country leaders talking about this and that, and it's Israel at the end of the day, Netanyahu is saying, we are responsible for securing our border.
Well, I will say this. Westerners operate under their own worldview.
Yes.
And this includes President Trump. President Trump is one of these kind of individuals who thinks that people will act based on what's in their best interest, because that is his experience as a builder, you know, entrepreneur, you know, wealthy and successful businessman, president. He believes, and most Westerners do, that that what would be best for the Palestinian people in Gaza is peace.
Yeah.
And let's rebuild Gaza City, and let's make that, as President Trump has said, let's just make that a wonderful place, you know, where people will where tourism will thrive. But ever since 9/11 in this country, many people in the West, and again here in the United States, don't want to admit the facts on the ground, which is that this radical Islamic ideology, and I don't think it has to be all that radical. This is Islamic, the Islamic worldview, cannot allow Israel to remain.
Yes.
That is why Hamas, they changed the wording of their charter, but their original charter said we exist to eliminate Israel. And we all hope for a break.
Yeah.
I think that, to me, is the best we can hope for, is a break. Maybe you can rebuild. Maybe the people of Gaza will say, enough with the Hamas. We want leaders that are, you know, like in Jordan, that understand Israel's not going anywhere. Israel's armed to the teeth. Their technological superiority is going to help them in a lot of military conflicts. They have nuclear weapons. Sane people will realize, even if you believe that Islam is going to triumph, which, spoiler alert, folks, it's not.
No.
Even if you believe it will, you know you're not going to push Israel into the sea without losing your own capital.
Mm-hmm.
That goes for every country that surrounds Israel. But people in the West don't seem to want to admit that the problem is Islam.
Yeah.
It's what that religion teaches.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, you're not going to be able to have a permanent peace in the Middle East. But, hey, I'll take a half dozen years.
Yeah.
I'll take 10 years of it if we can get it.
One thing that seemingly works in President Trump's favor here is the fact that he got as many Arab countries to, on paper, say, hey, Hamas, you got to agree to these terms. This is the best deal you're going to get. And I say that based on the audio I'm going to play here. Here again is a clip that begins with Trey Yingst in Egypt asking President Trump about Phase 2 and whether Hamas may stay true to its word here in this deal. Clip 4.
I'd like to talk about Phase 2 of the deal. Already Hamas has said they're not willing to disarm. What leverage do you have over Hamas at this point?
We have a lot of leverage over them, and the countries that would back them or had backed them in the past are not going to be doing it any further. And I think they want peace also. You know, there have been 70,000 killed of them, and they rebuild and they regrow, but it's not easy. And I think they probably say, we don't want this anymore. Look, they agreed to this. They agreed to the terms. So they'd be going against the terms of the agreement. So I think it's going to work out fine. Maybe you're going to have to be a little bit strong about it, or maybe not. But they've agreed to disarm, and they've agreed to other things also.
Well, Fred, I think that on the part of some of these more stable Muslim countries, I'm thinking of, like mentioned, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, some of these other countries in the area, they don't want Hamas stirring up trouble on their streets either.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, I think, why some of this pressure has been applied to Hamas by Arab countries. This is why the Muslim Brotherhood was kicked out of Egypt, because they didn't want stable governments. They didn't want any Muslim governments adopting any Western ideas. They didn't like the fact that Egypt and Jordan and Saudi Arabia have a kind of a tentative kind of feel to their relationship with Israel, but it's fairly stable. They know Muslim Brotherhood, Hamas, Hezbollah, they don't want that. And so some of these countries, I think, want peace, because peace is the way you prosper.
Yes.
But if you are governed by this radical ideology, you don't want them in your streets stirring up trouble and overthrowing your government.
Yeah.
In Jordan or Saudi Arabia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think Trump has used his expertise, his experience as a business guy. He has even said, tariffs work wonderful.
Right.
And he has used business deals with the Qataris, I'm sure with Turkey, with Qatar. Within 48 hours after the peace deal was initially announced last week, you had the Qataris making a deal with our Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, for a facility. They call it a Qatari facility. It's in Idaho, I believe it is. It's an Air Force base there.
Yeah.
And the Qataris are going to bring their F-15s and their pilots, and they're going to do exercises there. Well, you have to remember the Qataris have, as I've mentioned, have been playing host to Hamas terrorist leaders. So businesses make strange bedfellows.
Yeah.
It really does. But I think Trump is making deals with these countries like Turkey. He said yesterday in his, I believe it was the Knesset speech, he'd like to do a deal with Iran.
Yeah.
He feels Iran will come around because they're kind of isolated right now in the wake of the bombings, and he feels there's an opportunity. In fact, he kind of put out, come talk to us yesterday. So that's just the way Trump is. But I agree with you. You're not going to change the way that radical Islam thinks because of this deal. Mm-hmm. I think the word to use, and Israel's way ahead on this, is vigilance.
Yeah.
Vigilance. trust but verify.
Yeah,
somebody
that's
said
what Ronald
that.
Reagan. Yeah.
Yes, trust but verify, and that has to be the case.
Well, and I do think that some of these countries do have some leverage on groups like Hezbollah and Hamas because they've funded these radical groups. If you cut off the funds,
yes,
and you say we're not giving you weapons, we're not giving you money to buy weapons, then you can't apply some pressure, and you can weaken a group like Hamas. So we'll have to wait and see how this is going to work out. All right, Chris. So the president's been getting some applause.
Yes, from even Democrats, and I can verify. Trust me, I'm a journalist.
Trust and verify.
I verified this. It's not AI pretending to be Hillary Clinton. Here is Hillary Clinton saying something positive about the man that defeated her almost 10 years ago in the election. Clip 5.
It's a really significant first step, and I really commend President Trump and his administration, as well as Arab leaders in the region.
I woke up this morning and I came into work, and I'd never imagined I would run a soundbite of Hillary Clinton saying, "I commend President Trump." But I did.
Hey, Fred, kudos to Hillary Clinton. How many people thought they'd wake up to hear me say kudos to Hillary Clinton? I will say this. I wouldn't mind seeing a little bit more of this. I'm talking about from both political parties. It's not always a zero-sum game. There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, the president, whatever the political parties, the opposition, saying, you know what, this is good. This is good for America. This is good for the Middle East. So I got to give a tip of the hat to Hillary Clinton for setting aside partisanship and saying what everybody knows to be true, and that however this winds up turning out in terms of how long a peace deal can stay in place, this is a good step, and she said so.
Yeah, and Bill Clinton, I'm not sure who did it first. Bill Clinton, I think, issued a statement yesterday congratulating Trump. However, on the opposite side of this, former President Biden and his Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken.
Yeah.
We have some audio of that?
We don't have the audio, but
okay.
The reason being they put out things on social media, which is how the kids do it now.
Yeah.
But I can read to you what they say, and I posted these. I took screenshots of their posts on X. Let's begin with President Joe Biden.
You put them on our Facebook page?
I did.
You're saying?
Yes. Let's begin with President Joe Biden. He said, "The road to this deal was not easy. My administration worked relentlessly to bring hostages home, get relief to Palestinian civilians, and end the war." Secretary of State Blinken, under President Biden, said things like, President Trump adopted and built on the plan the Biden administration developed.
Okay, so let me take my own advice here. If that's true, if they did lay some groundwork, then they should be commended for doing so. However, I think President Trump has basically been. This goes with the Abraham Accords in his first administration, and in this administration, he has put a lot of pressure on on Hamas and on the Middle East, and has worked to try to get deals with some of these Arab countries. And to me, it's a little bit tacky to point at your own administration when nothing came of it, and claim that the President Trump is standing on your shoulders. Maybe it's true, I don't know, but I've never heard any of the Biden administration officials talking about the kind of things that President Trump has pulled off.
Well, Biden was vice president under Barack Obama. Somebody mentioned in the last day or so, Barack Obama delivered billions of dollars on pallets to the Iranians.
Sneaking it in the night.
Trump delivered bombs.
Yes. And which one worked better?
Which worked, yes.
Yeah. Those billions of dollars, I don't know what the percentage would be. Maybe nobody will know. But some of those billions of dollars that came from the United States went to Iran, supposedly releasing their cash that was frozen from the 1979 takeover by radicals in Iran. But some of that money wound up in Hamas's pockets.
That's right.
And Hezbollah.
Yes.
And Houthis and everything else, because Iran is a state sponsor of terrorism. So I preferred the bombs dropping. I think that got the message across a lot more than cash in the middle of the night. All right, we're going to take a short break, folks. You're listening to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Hope you'll return.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildmon.
Paul once wrote to the Christians at Corinth these words, "Love is patient and kind." I ran across a story in my reading once which I wish to pass along to you. I think it has something of a moral in it. Back during the Second World War, the parents of a sailor went for several weeks without hearing anything from their son. Finally, they gave up on their son and considered him a war victim. However, near the end of the war, the parents, who lived in New Jersey, received a phone call from someone in San Diego. After a moment on the phone, the parents recognized the voice as that of their son. He was alive. During the course of the conversation, the son explained to his parents that for the past several months he'd found it difficult to write because he'd been taking care of a war victim. He told them that the person had been wounded in the war and had lost a leg, an arm, an eye, and part of his face. His parents expressed concern over the poor sailor and then bragged on their son for taking care of him during all those months. The boy then asked his parents for permission to bring the wounded sailor home to live with them. He explained that the boy didn't have another home, nor anyone else to care for him. His parents expressed their concern for the wounded sailor and also told their son they thought it was a very noble thing for him to want to bring the sailor home. But after some conversation, the parents expressed their desire to their son that he not bring the boy home with him. They simply didn't want the job of taking care of such a battle-scarred sailor. Their son said that he understood their feelings and said that he would not bring the boy home. Expressing his love for the parents, the sailor hung up. You know, I guess it's hard to fulfill such a request as the sailor's son made. For most of us don't want a disfigured person around the house, do we? None of us like to look at ugly things, and most of us judge a person's beauty by their physical appearance. We appreciate the good that those who are disfigured have done, but we'd rather just not have to be burdened with them around the house. Many times we feel sorry for the physically handicapped, so we give some little something that requires no effort on our part and does them little good. But I think what the handicapped person wants more than anything else is to be treated like a human being. The morning after they spoke with their son, the couple in New Jersey received a telegram from the naval officials stating that their son had jumped from a window to his death. The parents couldn't understand why their son had reacted so to their request until the body arrived and the casket was opened. Their son had only one arm, one leg, one eye, and a badly disfigured face. Maybe we should try a little harder to love those who want to be treated like a human being.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildmon, a production of the American Family Association.
For he has rescued us from the dominion of darkness and brought us into the kingdom of the Son he loves. Colossians 1:13.
American Family Radio. This is Today's Issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of Today's Issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of Today's Issues.
And welcome back to Today's Issues. Ed Vitagliano sitting in for Tim Wildman this week. I'm joined in studio by Fred Jackson and Chris Woodward. And periodically, usually about once a quarter, we have a guest on, Dr. Walter Wendler, who's president of West Texas A&M University. And it is our privilege to have Dr. Wendler on the show with us again today. Dr. Wendler, welcome back to Today's Issues.
Thank you, Ed, and it's always a pleasure to visit with you gentlemen. I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, Walter, we wanted to talk to you about faith and reason on campus. a lot of Americans have had their attention focused on college campuses because of what happened to Charlie Kirk about a month or so ago, and a lot of things going on in terms of anti-Semitism on campus, but just the regular run-of-the-mill struggle that young people of faith have on many of our college and university campuses. So let us know what you think is going on college campuses and why it is important to tell Christian young people that both faith and reason can exist on our college and university campuses.
Yeah, pleased to do that, Ed. And in fact, there does seem to be almost a mandate, and I think universities do it sometimes intentionally and sometimes unintentionally, ask students to check their faith at the campus gate. And, I've told people I always reveal my Christian faith and what it means to me to others so that they may calibrate the things that I say, and if they so desire, test it against God's word. But I believe I should be honest about who I am, because who I am in my heart and my soul affects how I think and the things that I say and do, even as an academic. That these things are connected, and I think universities go to great extent to convince students that they could be disconnected. C.S. Lewis said one time that if you follow that line of reasoning, a student may have a full head. And this is a rough quote, may have a full head, but an empty chest, talking about their heart and their soul. And Lewis is right, as usual. We can't expect people to separate their faith. And I think being honest about what your faith life is, whatever it is it's important to your development as a human being that's created in the image of God. And if you don't have any faith, if you've got faith in government, like so many of the people you all talk about that seem to demonstrate faith in government rather than faith in Christ, and don't get me wrong, you all talk about that plenty too, but there are people that just think that the government's going to solve all their problems, or some other belief system, science is going to solve all their problems. My wife and I watched something on the news this morning about a teacher in a public school, and that this intention is good, but teaching students to have, in a sense, faith in themselves. They can do whatever they want to do, and so on and so forth. And sometimes that stuff is misguided. Now, when it's in Christ, in my mind, because the Bible tells me this, it's never misguided. And I think universities do a disservice to students to act like these two spheres of life, the mind and I'll say the soul, cannot coexist and do not inform each other. And I think that's, I think it's very important. Isaac Newton himself, who is probably one of the greatest scientists that ever lived, said, and I quote, "There are more sure marks of authenticity in the Bible than in any profane history." And Horace Greeley said, "It's impossible to enslave mentally or socially a Bible-reading people. The principles of the Bible are the groundwork of human freedom." And these gentlemen are pretty thoughtful people, and they recognize this connection between faith and reason. And no matter what contemporary higher education does to try to separate these things, it's a disservice to students. And I fear even sometimes that at Christian universities, this sort of isolation exists, this sort of, two ways of seeing things. And I believe there's only one, and we have to recognize that and work at integrating how we think from a faith perspective and how we think from a rational perspective, how these two things work together.
Dr. Wendler,
I think you see it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Fred here. We've often done stories through the years here about we talk to people like George Barna and others who talk about, it seems a lot of young people who grow up in churches, when they get to that university environment where there are a lot of challenges to what they've been taught, they're not prepared to make the argument, or I think you're noting, they're afraid. Can churches, can mom and dads do a better job of preparing their kids for the environment that they're going to be exposed to when they go to university? Is that the responsibility of churches and moms and dads?
I couldn't agree more, and I'd put it in this order: first moms and dads, and then churches. But I mean, they're neck and neck. It's a photo finish on that. But the fact of the matter is they can, and I think encouraging students to be, would-be college students, to hold on to their faith. And, we have many Christian ministries on our campus from many different denominations. And I always encourage students to get involved with those. But I also say don't rely just on those. Find a local church. Local churches, to me, are the foundation of the New Testament. I could argue the temples are the foundation of the Old Testament. But local churches are incredibly important. And if a student moves far away from home, where they can't attend church where they were raised, if they were raised in a Christian home, find a local congregation. Don't just rely on student ministries. And by the way, that is not in any way to disparage the ministerial works that occurred, within Baptist Student Ministries or Wesley Foundation or the Catholic groups or the Church of Christ groups. I'm just thinking of some down the street from me, that pay attention to these things. We've got Pentecostal groups, there's all kinds of groups, and I encourage that, but I also encourage local worship. If a student really wants to engage a faith community, ultimately that should be the greatest satisfaction in the life of a believing parent, that when the student matures and is out on their own as an adult, they maintain their relationship through Christ with Christ through God's word. They maintain their relationship, and they do that on their own. And I think what happens is, I've mentioned this to somebody once in a conversation about this, many Christian students who are very faithful in their church, one of the things they're taught is a respect for authority. They go into a classroom with a faculty member who feels like their greatest responsibility is to rattle the cage. And they do that, and the student doesn't know how to respond except to be respectful. And, we just all witnessed and watched the passing of Charlie Kirk. You can be respectful and be rigorously intellectual and reasonable and make very cogent arguments, but you have to have a grip on what your faith life is. And I think many students do, and then not be afraid to put it out there for people to hear and study and think about with you. In this little piece I wrote, I think I sent to you guys, Henry Fosdick said, man cannot live without faith because the primary requisite in life's adventure is courage, and the sustenance of courage is faith. Mm-hmm. And if faith and reason are connected, I would argue that faith and courage are also connected. I think we have to be courageous, and if Charlie Kirk taught us anything, he would have taught us, if we watched and listened, to be courageous with our faith. And I don't mean to beat somebody over the head with it, but I mean to be courageous and thoughtful about it and be willing to entertain discussions about it. I think that's very, very important.
Our guest has been Dr. Walter Wendler. He's president of West Texas A&M University. Dr. Wendler, you make great points here. If some of our listeners want to access some more of your writing or anything like that, where could they find it? Is there any of that available?
Oh, yes, sir. As a matter of fact, I write op-eds every week in local newspapers and some not local, some national newspapers. And they are all posted on Walter Wendler, WalterWendler.com. And if you go there, you'll find 800 opinion pieces that I've written about higher education. And I've been doing that for almost 2 decades now. And another place to go to find out about West Texas A&M University, because it is not a typical university. We've established on campus the Hill Institute, and we have on our board, our advisory board, Dr. Ben Carson is on that advisory board. Larry Arnn from Hillsdale College, I know you know him. He is on that advisory board. And I could go through and name all 6, and they're very influential people who are steadfast about what's important about higher education. And by the way, I would just announce or let you know that Ben Carson will be speaking on our campus on October 27th. We're not going to live stream it, but in all likelihood, we will post it to our website, which is West Texas. Somebody could access our website by entering WTAMU.edu, and you can get to our website. And when you get there, you can search for Hill Institute and find out what we're doing with that. But I think it is powerful. And obviously, we're a public university, but we are not taking any public funds for the Hill Institute. And I told the Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick, when he was here, he said, is there any way I can help? And I said, well, I don't want any money, because if we get money from you, that means then the discussion about what we do becomes larger, and we want to make sure it's focused on the things that we believe are essential and have been neglected in higher education for probably since the 60s and maybe before.
All right, so Dr. Wendler, let me give you an opportunity. If there are parents listening right now whose kids are on the verge of having to choose a college or a university, I want you to make a pitch to those Christian parents and make the case that if their kids are young people with a faith in Jesus Christ, they will not be harmed by going to a public university, West Texas A&M University. In fact, they will find plenty to do that will strengthen their faith. Go ahead and make your pitch, sir.
Okay, I'll do it. You pretty much just did it. There are plenty of things to do. And by the way, I will tell you that we're not 100%. I mean, there are people, we're like a church. We've even got disagreements here, about what we're doing and why we're doing it. But this is a very thoughtful university. We are in one of the reddest congressional districts in the United States of America. And we are the most conservative district that's home to a university in the state of Texas. There are 38. And our values here, Ronnie Jackson is our U.S. congressman, and these conservative values, I tell people, even people that disagree with me, and there are plenty, I tell them, look, we need to serve the folks that call West Texas home, and I have great confidence in the value systems of these people. They produce a lot of energy. They produce 30% of the beef that's consumed in America. This is a very important region in our state, and the people that do this work have conservative values. And if you went to my website, walterwendler.com, and typed in conservative, you'll see a lot of writings about this. I don't apologize for holding values that are similar to those folks who live in West Texas. Right. And I'll tell you, I'm not from West Texas. You guys have already figured that out. I'm from 35 miles out of New York City on the North Shore of Long Island. But I somehow escaped that and ended up at Texas A&M. And when I got off the bus in College Station, Texas, I said, Lord, what have I done? I looked around. This was 1970, and I thought, holy smokes, what have I done? But anyway, it turned out to be the best thing that ever happened. And I've been back to New York. Mary and I, both from New York. We've both been back to visit after we got married, but that's all. Okay. We've been in Texas most of our adult lives, and these values, especially these Panhandle values, are very important. And I think there's a lot of sympathy for those values on our campus. It's not monolithic.
Right.
It's not monolithic, but it is. There are a lot of places where students can find a connection to their faith life that they were raised with. And by the way, if they weren't raised in the faith, or if they've wandered away from it, I think there's a lot of opportunities through the various ministries on our campus to reconnect and find out how vital that can be, not just from a spiritual sense, but also from an intellectual and rational sense, that you can learn and be thoughtful and intelligent about what you do without having to apologize for being a Christian. It's one of the things that just bugs me about some of the Christian universities, where they almost apologize for being Christian universities.
Right.
Anyway.
All right,
I'm wondering.
No, hey, listen. It sounds like you got some preach in you, brother. There's nothing wrong with that. Dr. Wendler, thank you so much for being on with us again, and thank you for the work that you guys are doing there in West Texas. Again, folks, West Texas A&M University, and check out Dr. Wendler's writings. 800 opinion pieces. That's a lot of opinion. Dr. Wendler, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for being on with us.
Much.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for having me.
Okay.
Bye.
I think the bottom line is Amarillo ain't Austin.
Yes. No, that's right. I love listening to Dr. Wendler.
Yes.
And that, by the way, folks, that was the voice of Dr. Walter Wendler, president of West Texas A&M University. It sounds great what they're doing there at that university. I did not know. I detected some accent. I didn't know he was from New York.
What a contrast.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I like to joke with people that I meet from New York that we have a Brooklyn, Mississippi, which is an actual place. It's like, you should visit sometime.
We have Philadelphia.
Oh, yeah. We've got in Atlanta.
Yeah.
We've got all kinds of places.
Yeah. All right. Let's continue on, Chris.
Man, I mean, it's like it's tough to pick, but I'm going to say this. New York Attorney General Letitia James made her first public appearance last night at a political rally for Democratic Socialist Zoran Mamdani. He's the guy running for mayor and by most polls appears to be leading that race for mayor. And Letitia James appeared at a political rally last night where she endorsed Mamdani, saying that, she described him as her little brother. But she went on to basically say that Donald Trump and other critics aren't going to take me from my position and stuff like that. Don't take my word for it. Clip 7.
You see, I know what it feels like to be attacked for just doing your job. But I also know what it feels like to overcome adversity. And so I stand on solid rock. And I will not bow. I will not break. I will not bend. I will not capitulate. I will not give in. I will not give up. You come for me, you gotta come to all of us. All of us. Every single one of us. We're all in this together.
Well, okay, so that kind of had the cadence of a black preacher.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's what she was kind of drawing on.
Yeah.
And listen, Letitia James hopes all those people are going to stand in front of her. The charges that she faces are the charge she's facing is a very serious one.
Oh, yeah.
And for someone who came into her political kind of her heyday here, promising to get Donald Trump before she was even in office.
Right.
That's right.
And could look at all the evidence.
Yeah.
She's got some nerve.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, the needle is pegged on hypocrisy in that speech because, as you say, when she was running for office to be Attorney General of New York, she made speeches. I'm going to get him.
Yeah.
Speaking of Donald Trump, which is what she did, with a very bogus charge, by the way. I think everybody remembers that as far as, it's something about overvaluing Trump's properties. And even the banks didn't have a problem with that.
There was no actual victim here.
No victim in that. However, what she's being charged with is a house that she purchased, and when she filled out a loan for purchasing a house in Virginia, she said it was going to be her personal dwelling.
Right.
and it wasn't. And there's tax advantages to all of that.
Right.
So there's the IRS and fraud is in her future.
Yeah, and of course she's allegedly committed these crimes.
Right.
We do want to say that, but that's why I mentioned this is serious. This is a serious crime that she's being charged with, and she could wind up in prison.
Yes.
But I just listen. I get a kick out of politicians of any stripe who stand up there and say, we're all in this together. If they want to get me, they've got to go through you. And if I'm in the crowd, I'm going, no, they don't.
No.
You're on your own on this. Chris? Do you have an opinion on this?
Oh, I concur.
You concur. All right.
I want to mention this real quick. Charlie Kirk is being awarded the Medal of Freedom today. Today would have been his 32nd birthday, and everybody knows the story. Charlie Kirk was assassinated while at a Turning Point USA event in Utah Valley University back September 10th in Utah. And he's being given the Medal of Freedom, which is something President Trump announced weeks ago. And somebody that's been filling in for Charlie at Turning Point USA events is Michael Knowles of the Daily Wire. Michael Knowles was a guest on Fox and Friends First this morning, and he thought it was very fitting that Charlie Kirk would be getting the Medal of Freedom. Clip 6.
I think it's totally fitting. You know, the Presidential Medal of Freedom is the nation's highest civilian honor. And Charlie really embodied that true type of freedom. In fact, he was famously wearing the Freedom T-shirt. A lot of times today, we think freedom is just the ability to do whatever we want. That's not really what it is. Lord Acton tells us freedom is not the ability to do what we wish, but the right to do what we ought to do. In other words, it's not just losing our inhibitions. It is discipline grounded in the truth. I don't think anybody embodied that more perfectly than Charlie Kirk in our whole generation, and I think it's totally fitting that he is given this great honor.
You know, Fred, that's a good. I like Michael Knowles.
Yes.
He's very articulate, very smart, very rational, reasonable in debates. Conducts himself well. That's an excellent tie-in to the medal that Charlie Kirk will be getting posthumously. But it is a great point that Michael Knowles is making, and too many people in the West, not just the United States, but the West, think freedom is just the ability to do whatever you want without any sense of responsibility, without any sense of what is good for the community. Good points that he's making.
Well, Charlie Kirk fought for that freedom, fought for the freedom to tell the truth. Because we know on university campuses, not only are you discouraged from going against the stream of thinking that's so secular stream of thinking that's so prevalent, but he fought against the effort to shut down any opposition to the thinking that's on our university campuses, and particularly to Christian students, much like our guest that we just had on, Dr. Walter Wentler. Do not be afraid. One of the things Dr. Walter was saying is you don't check your freedom at the door. And yes, Christians are taught to be respectful of people in authority, but that doesn't mean that they get up there and they can say whatever they want and you're not allowed to disagree.
Right.
I'm sorry. You are allowed to disagree respectfully. And that's what Charlie Kirk stood for. Do not be afraid. I hope there are many Charlie Kirks that are in the pipeline right now.
I think so.
Coming along.
Meanwhile, President Joe Biden, who did he give the Presidential Medal of Freedom to?
This is another reason why people say elections matter. Before he left office, Joe Biden gave George Soros, of all people, the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
Yes.
You go from George Soros to Charlie Kirk.
Well, that speaks volumes.
Yes.
The kind of people you give the Presidential Medal of Freedom to, there I can say it, indicates what your worldview is. George Soros, I can't think of a worse individual to give the Presidential Medal of Freedom to. But I'll tell you this, elections do have consequences. And we are free in this country.
Amen.
So if Joe Biden wants to give that medal to George Soros, he has the freedom to do it, and we have the freedom to disagree. All right, we're going to take a short 5-minute break for news. And when we come back, Steve Paisley-Jordahl will be in the house.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
If God could speak, what would he say? The Bible subjects itself to historical verification.
He says, we saw this. We go to the Bible wanting to hear what the living God has to say to us.
When God speaks, what does he say?
The God who speaks. Visit stream.afa.net. This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
For American Family News, I'm Chris Woodward. New criticism for Zohran Mamdani, the Democrat candidate for mayor of New York City. It appears that Mamdani raised money for the UN organization known as UNRWA that was found to have employed people involved in the October 7th terrorist attack on Israel. New York Post columnist Miranda Devine.
It really is just mind-boggling. I think with Mamdani, every time you think that you've heard something terrible, you hear something even worse the next day about this completely unsuitable candidate who looks like he's going to romp into office.
The mayoral election in New York City is next month. Vice President J.D. Vance is seeking to clarify that a Qatari Air Force base being built in Idaho will not be under the control of Qatar. Fox's Jeff Manasso has more.
There's been some bipartisan backlash after it was announced last week by War Secretary Pete Hegseth that an agreement will allow Qatar to build a facility at the Mountain Home Air Force Base in Idaho. Vice President J.D. Vance telling Fox Business.
We are continuing to work with a number of our Arab friends to ensure that we are able to enforce this peace, but we're not going to let a foreign country have an actual base on American soil.
The Trump administration says the base will hold a contingent of Qatari F-15s and pilots in a partnership for enhanced training.
On Meet the Press Sunday, Vance called the story about the Qatari base fake news, seemingly contradicting the Hegseth announcement and prompting the clarification. Charlie Kirk will be awarded the Medal of Freedom today. The founder of Turning Point USA was shot and killed in September during an appearance at a college in Utah. Michael Knowles of the Daily Wire is among the conservative leaders that have stepped in to fill the role of Kirk at Turning Point events. Knowles told Fox and Friends that Kirk deserves this honor.
You know, the Presidential Medal of Freedom is the nation's highest civilian honor. And Charlie really embodied that true type of freedom. In fact, he was famously wearing the Freedom T-shirt. A lot of times today, we think freedom is just the ability to do whatever we want. That's not really what it is. Lord Acton tells us freedom is not the ability to do what we wish, but the right to do what we ought to do. In other words, it's not just losing our inhibitions. It is discipline grounded in the truth. I don't think anybody embodied that more perfectly than Charlie Kirk in our whole generation, and I think it's totally fitting that he is given this great honor.
Charlie Kirk was 31 years old at the time of his death. Today would have been his 32nd birthday. People of Los Angeles need our prayers again today. The same region where a fire killed dozens of people and destroyed properties in January is now at risk of mudslides. Some homes in L.A. have been ordered to evacuate. Camps are pushing back at new measures aimed at protecting young campers after July's devastating floods in central Texas. Fox's Kristen Goodwin has more.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott signing into law several bills aimed at enhancing safety measures at Texas summer youth camps. This includes requiring properties to move overnight cabins out of floodplains, to follow weather warnings with radios and alert systems, and to have dual broadband internet connections, one a fiber optic network and another through a separate provider. But camp owners tell state officials the requirements are too expensive and could force closures, noting many camps are run by nonprofits and explaining setting up broadband in rural areas could cost more than $100,000. Officials are looking to have the regulations in place by January 1st. Giving camps a 45-day window to comply.
The measures come after the July 4th floods that killed at least 135 people in central Texas, including 27 at Camp Mystic in Kerr County, Texas. In final news, the patriarch of a legendary baseball family has passed away. Here's Fox's Joe Morgan.
Sandy Alomar Sr., the father of Hall of Famer Roberto Alomar and six-time All-Star Sandy Alomar Jr., has died at the age of 81. Alomar Sr. played for 6 teams over 15 seasons and made his lone All-Star team in 1970 when he played in all 162 games for the Angels while stealing 35 bases. He finished his career with a .245 batting average and took part in 1 playoff series with the Yankees in 1976. Alomar Sr. went on to coach for 4 different organizations, the Padres, Cubs, Rockies, and Mets, and was the third base coach in San Diego from 1986 to 1990.
That's all our time for now. Find more news on AFN.net.
AFA Action takes attacks on the family seriously. The enemies of the family constantly employ new tactics to try to sneak past our radar. They know if we stand together, their evil plans will fail. Your gift to AFA Action allows us to stay vigilant against their onslaught. And if you give this month, you'll receive access to the Cultural Institute video When Your Faith is Illegal by Frank Harbor on AFA Stream as our thanks. You can make your gift today at afaaction.net.
Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Ed Vitagliano.
And welcome back to today's Issues. Ed Vitagliano, I can say my name. Sitting in for Tim Wildmon this week, joined in studio by Fred Jackson. And now Steve Paisley-Jordahl joins us. And if I'm not mistaken, that is another new Paisley shirt.
I've worn this one once before. I don't think you're on the show.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that explains it.
Yeah.
I love purple. I'm a purple, black, and blue person.
So like Bruce colors.
Yes, I guess that's true. If there's a bruise, I like the color. I'm not a big, red or loud yellow or pink person. So, anyway, I like it.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you very much.
All right, what's up?
All right. Hey, a week or so ago, President Trump reporters were talking to him, and I don't know how it came up at that point, but he said he's hoping that this peace deal goes through, because he wants to make basically enough points to get to heaven, right? And at the time, a lot of people said, well, there's some mixed up theology there. We might have even said it on the show here. That's not exactly, he should know better. And Peter Doocy followed up with him on that. Now that the peace deal has been structured, he asked him, now do you feel like this is going to get to heaven? And I got to tell you, the answer that President Trump gave was the saddest thing I've heard all day. And I mean, I literally am mourning for this. I'm sad about this. It doesn't make me angry or anything. It just makes me very, very sad. Let's listen to Cut 15.
You had talked a couple weeks ago, you were doing an interview, and you talked about how you hope to end the war in Ukraine because it might help you get into heaven. How does this help? Does this help?
I mean, I'm being a little cute. I don't think there's anything going to get me in heaven, okay? I really don't. I think I'm not maybe heaven bound. I may be in heaven right now as we fly in Air Force One. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to make heaven. But I've made life a lot better for a lot of people.
Yeah, we talked about this, and Steve, you played this for us in our story meeting. Now, Fred, we do want to be careful about this, discussing the state of another person's soul, okay? But that, I think, all around the table. I mean, Brent Creeley, our producer, was in there. Chris Woodward was in there with us because we do go over our stories. We can't cover everything, folks, but we do try to pick some of the more meaningful stories. And Steve played this, and all of us said that was sad. That I hope that President Trump understands a little better than that about how people get into heaven. Mm-hmm. And it was heartbreaking. If you love what President Trump has done, and I love his personality. I don't always like everything he does. I'm from that neck of the woods up north. I don't mind people who are brash and who are bold in what they say. So I kind of love President Trump's personality. Don't always like the way it comes out. We've talked about all that. He sometimes is his own worst enemy. Okay, but I want him to go to heaven. I want Joe Biden to go to heaven. I want Kamala Harris to go to heaven. I'm not wanting people not to go. And it was sad to hear him say that he doesn't think he's going to make it. Now, for our listeners, and we can kick this around a little bit. That's what we decided to do. It doesn't mean he's not going.
Yeah.
Okay? Just because he may misunderstand biblical theology, it doesn't mean he's not going. But I want him to have the assurance and the peace that comes from knowing that Jesus Christ died for him.
Yes. You know, the Bible says, for by grace are we saved through faith.
Yeah.
Not of ourselves, gift of God, not of works, lest any man should boast. I know President Trump has been exposed to gospel preachers.
Right.
You know, Pastor Jeffress, First Baptist Dallas. In his first time at the White House, Pastor Jeffress was frequently at the White House in the Oval Office with him. And I know Pastor Jeffress has testified that he has shared the gospel. Right now, you know, there's an office at the White House of faith leaders. And there are people like Gary Bauer, who we talked to, who's a born-again believer. So I believe he has been exposed to it. But that's not always the case that you completely understand it.
Right.
If you just took that comment that we heard on Air Force One, I guess last night, Peter Doocy talking to him, you would say he is thinking works will get him to heaven. He's not sure he's going to make it. He's not sure he has enough works yet in the bank. Well, we know you can have all the good works in the world, and if you're depending on that to get you there to heaven, that is not going to work. We talked in our discussion this morning, we talked about the thief on the cross.
Yeah.
And this is not an original thought, but the thief on the cross did not have a lot of theological knowledge.
Right.
But what he did do that day was he trusted Jesus Christ.
Right.
And Jesus said, "This day you'll be with me in paradise." So it doesn't take a whole lot of faith. It just takes a bit of faith to make salvation possible for you. You don't have to understand everything. I think President Trump perhaps is just not there in his understanding of it yet. And we pray that he will get to that point.
Yeah.
Where and hopefully this comment, people hear it, and perhaps, you know, Christians who are close by there in the White House will say, "Can I sit down with you, Mr. President? And just let's talk about this."
And our listeners who are Christians will continue to pray.
Absolutely.
For the president.
Absolutely.
So, Steve, I'm sure that President Trump, I'm sure he's lived a tough life. I'm not saying tough. He lived a privileged life with wealth. He was very successful. I'm talking about the moral component to his life. I'm sure he realizes the closer he is around Christians, he probably realizes that a lot of things he's done in the past were not morally proper, were not right. Okay, and maybe that is overshadowing. Maybe he just can't get out from underneath that. But what are your thoughts about this?
Well, I know he heard the gospel presented at least a half a dozen times just at Charlie Kirk's memorial alone.
Yeah.
So he has heard. I'm having a hard time getting the logic of somebody that thinks that they've become a Christian but doesn't think they're going to get to heaven.
Yeah.
So if he doesn't think he's going to get to heaven, I don't think he thinks he's a Christian. If he doesn't think he's a Christian, then maybe he accepted, trusted Christ, and then they did something that he thinks undoes that.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's the most gracious explanation I could give, the most hopeful, I should say. But I don't know how someone thinks they're a Christian doesn't think they're going to be going to heaven. Paul, I mean, who hasn't done things in their past that they wish they hadn't done?
Right.
None of us are going to make it if that's the case.
Yeah. Well, folks, we did want to bring this up in the grand scheme of things internationally or nationally. One man's fate, eternal fate, may not seem that important, but President Trump is not just your average person. He's very out in public. And we did want to bring this up. We were all we were all very saddened to hear him say that. I would be saddened to hear anybody say it. So please be praying for President Trump. Like I said, we don't know what the state of his soul is, but he's got the wrong idea about whether you can whether he's going to get into heaven if he has truly put his trust in Christ. So anyway, I don't want to go down, into a deep theological discussion. Most of our people who are biblically knowledgeable understand what we're asking you to do, which is to pray that President Trump, if he has attempted to put his trust in Christ, that he would gain an understanding of that. And that if he's said the words but wasn't sure what they meant, that the God the Father would draw him.
A thought just occurred to me. Can I
Sure.
add on to this? When he said the statement about, I hope my good works can get me to heaven a week or so ago, whenever he said that, no doubt the word got around to him through his Christian advisors, Mr. President, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
How it works is you have to trust Christ. Someone who's in the process of coming to Christ has to come to the point where they realize that their good works aren't going to do it.
Yeah.
And that they have no hope outside of trusting in Christ. And there is, for many people, a period of time when they've come to that realization, and yet they're not still able to yield their entire life.
Yeah.
And so maybe he's in process. That is a point down the road where, someone says, I didn't understand completely, but now I think I do understand that my good works aren't going to get me to heaven. And so there's got to be another way. And I'm maybe it's closer than we think.
Yeah. All right, folks, you got your assignment. Pray for the president. And pray for his political enemies too. We need to remember that the calling of the Christian is not first and foremost to politics. Okay, that's an outworking of our faith, just like feeding the poor down at the local soup kitchen. Our job is to love our enemies, to pray for them, to do good to them. So that's our assignment. Our assignment is to pray for President Trump and pray for his and our quote-unquote political enemies, because that's part of the calling of the Christian in the world. So, Amen. All right, Steve, let's move on.
All right, the whole world, I think, is celebrating the return of the hostages in Israel, and I was listening to Ben Shapiro. I regularly listen to his podcast. He is in Israel for the holidays and was invited to be in the Knesset for that speech, and just there's so much emotion going on over there. I found an interesting conversation between one of the hostages, his name is Omer Shem Tov. He was abducted from the music festival. He was returned in February, but this was, you remember, between the music festival in February, we had an election here.
Yes.
And it's interesting to hear what his perspective, what the Hamas perspective was on the election. He has a little bit of insight into this, he says. Cut 16.
Yes, it's him. He got me out. He got the hostages out. Before, we felt like nothing is happening, And I remember ever since he came into the road, they were very scared of him. Yeah, they wanted...
Who?
Terrorists.
We're afraid of Trump.
Yeah, they wanted Kamala to be chosen, to be elected.
You talked politics with them?
Yeah. They wanted Kamala to be elected. But as soon as Donald Trump was elected, they understood that he wants to bring the hostages back home. Yeah. So immediately the way they treated me changed.
You don't think elections matter?
Wow, that's astonishing, Fred. What that former hostage said about the political realities here in the United States and how they impact what's going on in the Middle East.
Hamas, this is what he said. Hamas wanted Kamala Harris to be elected president. A brutal Islamic terrorist thought they would have a better future under Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump. They were afraid that Donald Trump would be elected.
I think they were right.
Yeah, absolutely. So what does that say? Just because you're a terrorist doesn't mean that you're not smart.
Right.
In an evil way.
Yes.
Right? In an evil way. So what did they see? That would be my question. If a Hamas terrorist turned from their wicked ways.
Yeah.
I would love to sit and talk and say, why did you think Kamala Harris would be better for you as a terrorist? And we could speculate on what they would say. But I would say that very weak. Joe Biden, Kamala Harris were very weak people. They did not understand how evil we are. And they were willing to appease and go along. Unlike Donald Trump, who took action and said, you better, or your days are numbered.
I'm just going to say, yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I think that I can't put I can't get in the mind of a Hamas terrorist. But in terms of what Mr. Tov, is that his last name?
Tov or
Tov,
Tov, yes.
Okay. What he's saying, I think it might have to do with who would take the stronger approach against anti-Israel protests here in the United States, who would be more likely to stand firm with Israel.
Yes.
I think Biden / Kamala Harris clearly would have put more pressure on Israel.
Yes.
And maybe even gone so far as putting sanctions on Israel.
Mm-hmm.
And if your last name is Soleimani, okay, or later on, in what Trump did in Iran, okay, these terrorists understood the nature and the character of Donald Trump. He's a business kind of person, and you don't want the U.S. military turned loose on you.
Yes.
And all of that goes into what you're saying, Fred, and what this young man was saying.
I was talking with Heather last night about, and what was it that Donald Trump had that Joe Biden didn't have and everything. I think Joe Biden and the Democrats and maybe every Republican, every president, everybody before Donald Trump always looked at this problem from a Western mindset, which is if you negotiate, this side gets a little, this side gets a little, we can find that place where everybody's happy, it's a win-win, and everybody's going to live in peace.
Right.
That is not the mindset in the Middle East. All they understand is strength.
Yes.
And so the way you win a war is not by negotiating a settled peace, it's by destroying the enemy.
Right.
In the Middle East.
And that's why people have said the bombing of Iran was the change point.
That was a game changer.
That changed everything because Hamas, not only Hamas, but, you have other countries, where the Qataris and everybody in that neighborhood, the Middle East neighborhood, understood then that Donald Trump wasn't just talk. He did it. He sent those B-52s in there. In fact, part of his speech, I think, in the Knesset the other day was, I love those B-52s, And
the B-2s.
Yeah, and we're going to order another 26 of those things. So, I mean, what he was saying is they made that decision to go in there, and so the Middle East community knew this is a man of his word. And if he says, we'll help Israel destroy Hamas, he meant it.
Yeah, and it's not just the will. It is absolutely the will. I'm not disagreeing. Absolutely the will, but also the ability.
Yes.
What the U.S. pulled off, and what was it? These guys flew these bombers for like 48 hours or something.
I think they come out of Oklahoma.
Yeah.
There's a base there.
Yeah. They had to be refueled 3 times.
Incredible.
Yeah.
That you have these bombers impervious to radar. Okay, they're stealth, and so it's the will plus the ability to do it.
Yeah.
And these terrorists knew if Trump gets elected, and then after he got elected, he's liable to send a cruise missile into my apartment.
Yes.
I don't know if it was true or not. I think he was being serious. Donald Trump, he was joking around during his speech. He said, these planes, they're invisible. Even the pilots can't see them.
Yes. I wanted us to find that because I think he was trolling, obviously, the reporter. But he said, yeah, even the guys working on them can't see them. That's a funny line. The president's good at trolling. All right.
Hey, let's. Do you want to retire sometime, Ed?
Do I want to retire sometime?
Sometime? Do you think?
Yeah, when I get enough money, all right, you could get enough money to retire.
Say that you decided to change. Well, maybe you had some really good share-thons or whatever, and you started making some Whoopi Goldberg money.
Yeah. Maybe if I got to $30 or $60 million, I might think about retiring.
Whoopi is making $8 million a year on The View, and she's supposed to be between $30 and $60 million. Yet when she was asked about retiring, well, this is what she said. Cut 20.
Do you ever think about slowing down, just enjoying this?
Yeah, but who can afford to do that? Who can afford to start? If you don't marry well, you got to keep working.
I feel like you might be one of the people that could afford it by now.
No, not by now. Not yet.
Look, that's just patently absurd. Now, folks, we were kidding. Steve and I were joking around about me wanting to retire and me needing 30 to 60 million. I knew what the numbers were that she would be talking about. That's patently absurd, Fred, for anyone. Maybe she's serious. Maybe, I don't know what she spends. And New York, does she live in New York?
I believe so.
Okay. I don't know how much it costs to live there, but I don't know. Maybe she's right.
Yeah, well, Mom Donnie's coming after her.
That's true. I hadn't thought about that.
My advice to Whoopi, if you want to retire, is move to New Jersey.
You better get going now.
Yeah. Before he gets elected.
Yeah, so that's kind of crazy. I think some of the financial experts now, I've actually seen this, they say you need between 1.5 and 2 million to retire. So I'll be working for a long time.
That's right.
I will be getting ready for work on the day I die. I'm guessing if that's what you need.
And you're going to tell everybody it's because you love your job so much.
Yes, but I love my job. And what else am I going to do?
If I could just find the office.
Well, listen, and there's a lot of people listening. It depends where you live, obviously, and it depends what your lifestyle is. Maybe Whoopi Goldberg. She said if you marry well, then you don't have to worry about it. Well, I married well, but it has nothing to do with money.
No.
My wife and I always joke around. There is nobody on either side of the family who's rich. At least one. Why didn't one grandparent have a bundle to send down the line? But most of our listeners are probably in the same boat.
Yes.
So,
hey, I introduced you guys to a new sport during our story meeting this morning, and I wanted to let you guys kind of go off on this. It's called Ice Wars, and they put together a mini hockey ring. This is the size of a boxing ring.
Yeah.
They will dress up two combatants in hockey gear.
On skates.
Ring a bell, and they have a hockey fight. And then I don't know how they declare the winner. It's probably not by knockout, but because hockey fights never get to knockouts.
Well, every once in a while you do get one, but that's pretty rare. Fred, you and I were talking, okay, now you and I are one of about, 4 or 5, there's 130 people working here at AFA/AFR. Probably 4 or 5, maybe a sixth that we just don't know about. That likes hockey.
A secret.
It doesn't want to admit it.
A secret hockey fan. We get tired of people saying when we mention we like hockey and they go, oh, yeah, I went to a fight last night and a hockey game broke out.
Yeah.
How many times I've heard that? And this just walks right into the stereotype.
It does. Hey, listen, we're not denying that fights do break out.
Yeah.
But, I hesitate part of the game, but it's a rough sport.
It is.
It's a rough sport. And by the way, I'm trying to remember if there was an incident where somebody actually got hurt. I mean, these guys have full equipment on.
Yes.
And many times they start with a smile at each other.
Yeah,
this is part of
because what they do is they'll say, you come up to a face-off, and you and me, Fred, and I'll say, or you say, hey, you want to go?
Yeah.
And they say, yeah.
Yeah, let's go.
Let's go, and it's kind of for the fans. And then when it's over, you can hear these guys when they're mic'd up. They'll say, hey, good fight, man.
Yeah, they laugh at each other.
Yeah.
You know?
I have seen every once in a while someone bleeding from a punch, but and while they're fighting now, they're doing their job. That's not pretend, but so I don't like this sport. This war on ice thing does such a disservice to true hockey fans. All right, folks, that's all the time we have. But you know what? There's more great programming directly ahead on American Family Radio. Keep listening, and Lord willing, we'll be back here tomorrow. And by the way, pray for the president.
Yeah.